How we doing, everybody? How we doing? Today is Saturday, July the 10th, 2021. And we're just continuing our real estate note investing series. This is the third part in the series. If you want to see the first two parts, you can go to my YouTube channel at Abundance Capital Group. It'll be under the playlist Real Estate Investing Course. The first two episodes will be there. This one will be uploaded once we are done. We're here at Wassesson Park, kind of on the border of East Orange and Bloomfield. We're usually here every Saturday, as you can see behind me. That's the park. And I'll show you the rest of the park. You can see here, this is the dam or whatever they call it, and that's kind of the rest of the park there. And down there is the basketball courts and the track and everything. So we are here each Saturday as long as the weather's permitting throughout the summer. Once the weather breaks, we will be moving indoors to another location, but that is yet to be determined. So each week we just try to talk about real estate investing and focusing on notes. People do have questions in regards to just other aspects of real estate investing. We're willing to sit and take those questions and answer them. But we just kind of go through a little bit more detail on these on Saturdays in regards to note investing. We also do a live. We're doing them on Tuesdays nights. We were doing them on Monday nights, but now we're doing on Tuesday nights at 7:30 for the next few weeks. I have a church obligation on Monday nights. So, 7:30 on on Tuesday for the next 7 weeks. You can find us there talking about real estate note investing. We go a little bit shorter. We just try to pick a topic and hit on it. On these on Saturday, we look to go a little bit longer. So, during the week, obviously, we try to keep it to about 20 minutes or so because, people, have things to do and don't want to sit in front and watch something for an hour, hour and a half. So, but this week, and like I said, this is the third in the series. We're going to be talking about performing notes and the due diligence with performing notes. Next week we will talk about non-performing notes, but we're going to talk about and focus on performing notes and the due diligence process. If you go back to the second video, we kind of went through the due diligence part of when we're looking at notes, whether they be performing or non-performing. So if you want to, go back and look at that, please do. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna focus on the due diligence. Comes down to asset price, property value, the numbers and the story, the ITV, and a couple of other, factors. So we're just gonna focus and break down on each of those and what we try to look for so we can make a good decision when purchasing a performing note. For those that don't know, a performing note is when you have a home, you usually get some type of security agreement and a note. The note is the IOU. It spells out the terms of how you are to repay the loan that you were given, and that usually goes along with the security agreement, which in New Jersey is a mortgage. Usually out west, they do deed of trust, and usually in the Midwest, primarily, they do a land contract for deed. All of those are security agreements. But the note a lot of times will go along with a deed of trust and a mortgage. And this is just going to spell out how you to repay the loan that a bank or someone gave you to purchase a property. And a performing note is one that is being paid back on time each month when the payment is due, and then the full amount is being paid. So that's what we mean by a performing note. So when we're looking at performing notes, there's a bunch of things that we want to kind of look at when we're doing our due diligence and thinking about purchasing a note. Or if you are somebody, that we can help invest their money into these performing notes, these are the things that, we look at and, we research and kind of go through, so you don't have to do that. And we bring this information to you to say, this is why we feel this is a good investment. So like I said, we're just going to go through the different, steps in the due diligence. So first is the asset price. So we want to kind of figure out, what are they asking for this? And on a performing note, you want to be somewhere around 70% of the value of the property if you're going to purchase this particular note. The reason being is that you always have to take into consideration worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is that the borrower stops paying, and you ultimately have to take the property back. Now that is always the worst case scenario. Now there are other things that can be done maybe in between, but we're not going to cover all that right now. But we're always thinking about worst case scenario, even in a performing note. If you have bought performing notes prior to March of 2020, before the pandemic, people could have been paying, could have been going smooth, and then obviously life hit, and you have to take in consideration when buying a performing note if something happens, not just a pandemic, God forbid, if someone loses their partner, their husband, their wife, a person in their family becomes ill, has a lot of medical expenses, or whatever the case may be. So you want to, you just never know what could happen in life. So you always have to prepare yourself for worst case scenario. So I know if I'm at about 70% of the value, if something does happen with this particular property, I feel as though that I can still recoup my money that I put into this and make a good return, and at worst probably break even. So that's why we want to use that kind of as a guideline. Now we don't have to stick to that. There's in performing notes, sometimes there's some other factors that go into you may be paying more. Maybe you feel really good about the particular person that's in the property. There's a lot of equity maybe in the property and things of that nature, where it will be very difficult for somebody to walk away. Maybe there's some other things that can be done in that particular situation to kind of rectify if life happens to that person. So in some instances you'll see people maybe go up to 75, 80, 85% of value. We don't really recommend that people go up that high, but in certain cases where you have a really good borrower, they have a really good job, really good savings, their financials, because a lot of times we can see through an application on what this person's finances look like. So maybe you could say, based on who this person is and what we feel about them, I can take a little bit more risk here because I don't see them not paying. And but like I said, you always want to use precaution in doing that. And we really don't like to, instruct our clients to kind of go and be in that 80-85% range, maybe at the most 75%, because we, like I said, we rather, we want to play it a little bit more safe as opposed to taking, bigger risks. So when it comes to a performing note, what is the asset? What are they asking for this particular asset? Are they asking a price that's over and above that 70 to 75%? If they are, probably not going to purchase that asset, most likely, unless, like I said, there's a lot of other factors that go into it that make us feel very good about our position. The property has a lot of equity. Like I said, if somebody gets into trouble, they'll probably sell the property, and then obviously you being a note holder, you will have a unpaid balance that you're going to be owed that is going to be more than what you paid for the actual note itself. So that's the first thing when it comes to the asset price. Now, property value. Again, we have to make sure that we know what the property value is. In order to know that if you're going to be in that 70 to 75% range, we have to have a good, sound, solid idea of what the value of the property is. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. You can, there's a lot of online sources that you can go on. Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia. There's a bunch of online resources that you put in the address of the property, and it'll give you an idea of what they feel it's worth. Some of those are getting better, like Zillow is getting better. At one time, you never wanted to use the Zestimate on Zillow, but they've gotten better with their technology and their research, so they are giving better information when it comes to the value of the property. You can look at some of those other sites and kind of get a range. Maybe Zillow says it's worth $100,000, maybe Realtor.com says $115,000, and then maybe Trulia says $110,000. So you know that you're somewhere between like maybe $100,000 and $110,000 that this property is worth, and you can maybe feel confident in that when the numbers are close like that. If you start to see, one says $100,000, one says $130,000, another says $150,000. You have to be a little leery there because there's a big difference. So what you can do if you're not feeling that confident in what you find online, you can order what's called a BPO. A BPO is very inexpensive, usually they're less than $100. You'll have a local person in that area drive by the property, take pictures of the exterior, and they kind of go into the multiple listing services and they look at a bunch of different things to kind of determine the value of this particular property. So you can feel more confident that a local person who's in that area, who knows that market, is giving you a value on this property. And maybe not if it comes back at like 110, you saw 100, you saw 120, you saw 150, something like that, but this will come back at 110. You can say, okay. And this is how you can start to know where you want your price to come in. Now, we don't recommend that you do BPOs right away. If there is some discrepancy in the beginning, you say, okay, before I actually purchase this, that's probably one of the last things you want to do prior to purchasing a note is getting a BPO. So we're not going to do that in the beginning because then you start to spend, $100 for every asset that you look at, and that can get kind of costly. So you don't want to do that. You want to wait until, you look at some of these other factors and say, okay, because I don't have a really good idea of what the value is before I, finalize this transaction. I want to send somebody out and get some information and see what they say it's worth. And then I know that, I can proceed with the transaction. So, so now we want to look at the numbers. And when we say numbers, that entails the investment to value. Am I in that good ratio? What is the unpaid balance on this? Now, when it comes to unpaid balance, you can be at a higher percentage of unpaid balance than you can on investment to the value of the property. I mean, you can go up to 90-95% of the unpaid balance, but as long as that what you're paying for it is still within that 70-75% of what the property's worth, the unpaid balance isn't a big thing to you. That's not a major concern to you. Now, obviously, you don't want to pay more than the unpaid balance, but you can get higher or closer to what the unpaid balance is, just as long as you know that the property is worth more. So I hope that everybody understands that difference there. The unpaid balance, is going to be what you're going to be paid over time. When you collect these payments, it's going to be that amount over however many months is left to be paid. So you can be higher on that But like I said, still, if you're in a good position and relative to what is the value of the property, you know that you're in a good position investment-wise. And also what we do with performing notes, we try to find out the story, like what happened, what's going on with this particular borrower. Who are they? What type of job do they have? Who did they buy this property from? Was this a foreclosure that an investor bought, fixed up, and sold to them with seller financing? Maybe they did have some, credit issues at one time. So we try to find out as much as we can, about that borrower based on the file. Now, some files are going to have more information than others, but a lot of times you can, get the name of the person, be able to, look them up. You can see from public record, is this person someone that has, several run-ins with the law? Have they filed bankruptcy many times? You can do a lot of research on someone because it is public record. And we just try to figure out who this person is, like who are you dealing with. That should, give you a good idea, in terms of this investment. Like, do I feel comfortable with the person that's in this property? And maybe you don't feel comfortable, but because of where you're buying this property, in terms of that, again, that investment to value, maybe I'm buying it at 60 cents on the dollar. So that person, if they get in trouble or if they do something, it doesn't bother me because I know I can get this property back, probably put it on the market or do something like that and be able to, obviously make some money, hopefully make all the money that I put into the investment plus more because I'm protected based on where I purchased. But we'd like to know as much as we can, about the particular person, about the numbers and how they work and the ratio, like what type of return am I going to get based on me purchasing this at 70 cents on the dollar or 75 cents on the dollar. If this person makes 12 consecutive payments, because again, we're talking about performing notes, am I getting a 10% yield? Am I getting an 8%? Am I getting more than 10? So you want to look at those as well and see what your anticipated yield is. Now, obviously, we can't figure out the yield until the year is over that you've owned it, and hopefully that person has made, all of the payments, hasn't missed any payments, or if they did miss, they have made up the payment, and you have collected a total of 12 payments in any given year to make sure that your yield is what you thought it would be. And then obviously the higher yield, the better it is for you. But again, if you have money sitting somewhere that's getting you 4%, 5%, would you not take an investment backed by real estate that may get you 7, 8% or more? Makes sense, correct? So, this is part of the numbers as well. Also, equity is a number that we want to know. How much equity does this person have in the property? I mean, based, from year to year, some equity have jumped 20, 25% in some areas, based on the market that we're in. And that's going to be a big factor moving forward when we get some of this new inventory that's getting ready to come out. Because individuals are going to have most likely equity in their properties, they're most likely going to be looking to work with you as a note when you purchase their note if they get into trouble, so to say. But again, we're focusing on performing notes. So most of these people are going to have a reason, in terms of dollar signs, in terms of money, on why they should try to stay in this property and continue making their payments. Or maybe people will decide to sell, and that works out even better because, again, there's still an unpaid balance that's owed to you, and that will be a lot of times more than what you obviously put into the property or to purchase the note. So that works out good too. So that's a big factor as well. If you see people with good amount of equity, $20,000, $25,000 or more dollars in a property, that's a good sign that most likely they're going to want to, stay and continue to, build up that equity. Or if they do run into trouble because they know they have equity, they're most likely going to sell the property so they can, not go into foreclosure, damage their credit and everything like that. So equity is a factor too. And again, the way that we know that is by getting that VPO, understanding what the value is, on the property and seeing that this person has 10%, 20% of equity, in the property. Another number that we want to look at is what is the rental value in the area. Now, some of these areas where you can purchase notes, the rent is $300, $400, $500 more than what it is to own. You can get a mortgage in some of these areas $400, $500, $600 a month, but the rent for that same 2 or 3 bedroom in that area is $800 or $900. So what is a person going to do most likely in that scenario if they do run into trouble? Because again, we're talking about performing notes, but if they run into trouble, they know that in the area that they live in, unless they're planning on moving to a different area or a different state, their payment actually is going to go up. So if the mortgage payment can be at or below the neighborhood rent, that's another good sign that, most likely if something does go wrong with this, we'll be in, they're most likely gonna, want to work something out, because they know that they're actually gonna pay more if they move out of the property. And you'll be surprised. I mean, even in, New Jersey here, a lot of people are paying, $1,700, $1,800 or more for 2, 3 bedrooms. And, sometimes you can get a property and it may cost you the same. And what's better, to have your own house or an apartment for that? So, knowing that rental, the neighborhood rental value is important. That's something that we look at as well, and that helps us to make a decision on, whether we want to buy a performing note or not, or if we want to, have our clients buy them or not. So also in performing notes, we want to look at the property title. We want to make sure that if this note has been sold before, we want to make sure that the assignment of the mortgage or the assignment of deed of trust or whatever is being assigned was done properly. Was the note and the mortgage, or the note and the security agreement, assigned properly? And we can research that through public record. If we're not able to get it online through public record, when we do a title search, the title company will be able to tell us, okay, this, was a bank had it, they foreclosed on it, they sold it to this particular company, that particular company sold it to XYZ person, that particular person sold it. So we can see the chain and making sure that all that documentation is in there. I'm dealing with a situation now where a guy, selling a note, and we're helping him sell it. And his attorney at the time when it was purchased never recorded the land contract. And a land contract is supposed to be recorded within 20 days of the closing of the property. So now we have to kind of go back. We have to, put in some paperwork with the county and the town that this is in to rectify that situation. But we were able to catch that when the title was run. The owner of the note was thinking that the attorney at the time was going to record the document, and they didn't. And a lot of times when you try to go back and record these things, you have to have the original. And this one was a note that was created back in 2017. It's been like 4 years. The owner, the attorney, they may not know where the original is at this particular point. So there's some other things that we have to do to rectify this decision. Gladly that it didn't, kill the deal, so to speak. It just, kind of delayed things, and we have to put this proper paperwork in order. But that's part of, the process of doing this due diligence. And we would have caught it if we could have seen everything online. But because of where this particular property was, not every county and every town throughout the country has a really good online system. You'll find some places that is really easy to access online information and get all the documentation and be able to see the chains and the assignments. and then other places where you buy, that may not be the case. So you have to wait until you do that title search to make sure that everything was done properly. In this instance, like I said, we were able to catch something, and hopefully we can get that taken care of this week and be able to move forward with the transaction. So another part of this is when you run title is, or even before, kind of the same issue can run in looking up the property taxes that we discussed when we try to see the assignments and everything online. You'll probably see more towns and counties have better online services when it comes to the taxes, and being able to at least call someone at the tax office and say, hey, XYZ property, are the taxes up to date? Is there anything behind? Because again, you want to make sure that this is paid. If it's not paid, then obviously you want to either pay it yourself or have the appropriate party pay for it, prior to purchasing a performing note. I mean, for a couple, $100 or whatever the case may be, it may make sense for you to go ahead and just pay it. But a lot of times if we're buying this, we're going to leave it up to the person selling it to make sure that that's rectified, because we don't want, taxes can be, it's probably the biggest thing. Delinquent taxes is the biggest thing that could jeopardize your position as a note holder. They can wipe out any mortgages or any liens on the property behind the taxes. Once tax sale is set, or a lien is put on the property for non-payment of taxes. So you want to make sure that that is taken care of. Sometimes it may be 2 or 3 years behind, and maybe you only have to pay one of those 3 years or 1 of the 2 years to get it back, not in a tax sale situation. There's a bunch of different things that you can do just depending on where this particular property is that you're looking at. But we want to make sure that the taxes are paid. A lot of times we can get that online, or again, this should show up in that title search. And it's very important that we get that title search done prior to finalizing any type of purchase. And then again, with non-performing notes, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the exit strategies. I'm going to save the exit strategies just for, just to talk about them in general. But again, when we're thinking about purchasing a performing note, a lot of times with a performing note, you think that you don't really need to come up with exit strategies, but you want to, again, prepare for the worst. If I had to take this property back, what am I going to do at that particular time? Now, you're not anticipating that happening. We hope that doesn't happen. But again, we never know. So we have to make sure that, if there are some bumps in the road or things go wrong with this, what are my exit strategies? We're going to cover exit strategies in a whole, probably in a couple of weeks, because next week I'm going to focus on non-performing notes and kind of going through, this due diligence on it. That'll be what we'll talk about next week. And you don't do as much of due diligence on a non-performing because the person is not paying. So we'll get into that next week. And then the week after that, we're just going to talk about exit strategies as a whole. There are a lot of different exit strategies, and this is why a lot of people like notes, is because you don't have just 1 or 2 exit strategies. You have 10 or 15, 20 different exit strategies that you can use, on a property. And we'll kind of, go through, we'll go through those all in one at one time, because they're going to work whether you have a performing or non-performing. We use the exit strategies if something goes wrong. If nothing goes wrong, obviously we don't have to use an exit strategy at that particular time, but it is for when things start to go wrong. So that's that's just about it in terms of the things that we look at, and we try to get our clients this information on each of these areas on why we think that this particular note purchase is a good or a bad deal. Sometimes, you can see certain factors that look good, and then we can see other factors that make it not so good. So we don't just limit it to kind of, one or two things. We kind of look at all of these areas, whether we're purchasing, performing, and non-performing, just to be able to make the best decision. And again, with notes here, we kind of lower our risk by doing this due diligence because we know exactly what it is that we're buying, plus we have the multiple exit strategies. So we'd really have to, it really have to be some extenuating circumstances for all of those exit strategies and everything that we prepared for in the beginning not to be available to us at some point down the road. So again, that's really why we like, note investing. So if you are interested in learning about note investing, talking about it, possibly investing in it, please reach out. Telephone number is 973-475-8488. Email is acg@abundantcapitalgroup.com. Again, we're here each Saturday, weather permitting, as long as it's not raining, at 1 o'clock on Saturdays. We are in the Wassesson Park. If you'd like to come and meet in person, if you're out and about and have a few minutes, this is where we'll be. I'll show you where I'm at again. That is Glenwood Avenue. I'm right at Glenwood and like Carteret. You'll see the walkway, the benches, and I'm right there. And that's the eastern side of the park. Zoom in on that. The basketball course, the track and everything. And this is kind of the Bloomfield side. So this is where we are. We want to answer questions. There's an opportunity now. There's going to be more of an opportunity coming up, especially with note investing because of the pandemic. Forbearances are ending. Some have ended already. Others will be ending at the end of this month. Banks will be unloading some of this inventory. It will eventually get down to, our level, so to speak, smaller level investors. If you're somebody that has larger amounts of money, and you want to get involved, you can get involved at a higher price tag and buy, maybe 10, 20 notes at a time if you have that type of money. But most people can buy, one-offs, what we call them, one at a time. And there'll be some really good deals, whether you're buying performing or non-performing. Again, we're going to get into the non-performing side next week and some of the things that you can do. But just think of buying a non-performing note a lot of times as either a real estate play. You're going to just take back the real estate, so you're getting actually before it gets to the courthouse steps, or you can do a modification with someone. It's a good thing when we can modify loans and keep people in the property, and obviously make a nice return on your investment by doing that. Everybody wins in that scenario. So those are things that are coming up. There are things available. We are going to see more inventory coming in the last part of this year, but we're just trying to get this message out, get people prepared to take advantage of it. And if you want to talk with us, please just reach out. Like I said, telephone number is 973-475-8488, and the email is acg@abundantcapitalgroup.com. So everybody, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll be back Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. Again, we'll go a little bit shorter, about 20 minutes or so, and we'll get into other aspects of note investing. We also do Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. and we show people how they can use their retirement accounts to invest in real estate or real estate notes. That's where most people, have their money. And you can use that money and make it grow faster and more securely when you are investing in real estate and real estate notes. So we try to get into that a little bit and give you some of that information as well. So, check us out on social media at Abundant Capital Group. And, you can always go to the website too, www.abundantcapitalgroup.com. All right, everybody, have a good one and talk to you soon.